Opposed? Motion carries. Entertain a motion to open the public hearing on the mayor's tentative budget for 2015-2016.
So moved.
Mr. Revere, second by Mr. Carvel. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Folks have a presentation to make, and then we will open it up for a public comment period. Thank you to everyone for being here. Number of slides to go through. It'll be really quick. This here shows a history from 2003 to 2014, the tax levy increase and how the trustees came about to the end. So 10 of the 13 years, this demonstrates that the trustees typically lower the mayor's proposed budget. Tax rate per thousand in 13 years, it's increased 53% from 2003, which was $10.48 per thousand of assessment, to my proposed this year at $16.01. So that's 53% in 13 years. Subject I've been talking a lot about for the last several months, the appropriated fund balance. As you can see the trend there. You'll notice that for the last 5 years, our appetite for fund balance has been significant as the budget's grown. In 2009, we allocated $170,000 of fund balance to offset the general fund budget. And as you can see, the last several years we've spent more. We have to stop that trend. Last year we did that, and I'm hoping to continue that trend this year, keeping the fund balance flat at $250,000, which was allocated in my proposed budget. The unassigned fund balance, unallocated, unused, unreserved, however you want to address it. Those are the numbers since 2008. You can see that in 2013, the fund balance was down to $430,701. In my view, my estimation would be dangerously too low. So if we can resist the urge and continue to resist the urge to spend fund balance this year, we're relatively healthy at this point at over $1.2 million in fund balance for the general fund. The next several slides will give you a 5-year history of each account, looking at revenues and expenses, and you should have this in your packet, so I won't get into too much detail, but you can see for this particular account, refuse has been relatively flat. This is the water fund. Unfortunately, this year's proposed won't show up on that screen as much as I tried to play with it today, so but you can see expenses in the water fund have been growing more than the revenues. Sewer fund, same situation. Expenses growing more than revenue. Although we anticipate expenses to be down this year in that account. Joint recreation. You'll note that the joint recreation, the village pays 60.5%, the town pays the balance, which of course is 39.5%. And the piece of the budget that tends to get the most attention, because the bulk of the attention, because it's a general fund which is generated primarily in large part by taxes and revenue, so the revenue from taxes. Those are the general fund numbers. On my proposed budget, looks to spend money, general government 11%, education less than 1%, public safety at 30%, that's police and fire, health less than 1%, transportation at 16%, community development at 1%, parks and rec at 4%, home and community 1%, employee benefits at 34%, debt service at 3%, and transfers to other accounts less than 1%. So the department heads submitted budgets. I made substantial cuts to their request. Those numbers are outlined right there, the percentages and the amounts taken out. Nearly $950,000 in cuts that I made already. We've made $947,092 made to the request by department heads. Some notable changes and some information. That's always one of the biggest questions we get. What does 1% equal in the budget? $53,951. So the budget currently stands at 5.9%, but if the trustees want to get it to 4.9%, that's what they have to find to cut in the general fund, $53,951. Last week it was reported through the media that our assessed value in the village dropped. That's not accurate. It's actually the taxable value in the village dropped, so assessments didn't go down, the taxable value did. How those fluctuate is people have assessment challenges, they go to the review board, they challenge their assessment. If they win, their assessment's lowered, they pay less property tax. Some of our businesses get 485B exemptions. That's for new businesses come in that construct. Some businesses do additions, constructions, renovations, whatever the case may be. They apply for that 485B exemption, which we offer. It's good for the community. It brings in business. It encourages businesses to expand. So they get a reduction in their assessment or their taxes. And sometimes we have, from time to time, property taxes that become tax exempt. Private business owner or private property owner donates their property to a not-for-profit. That property now comes off the tax rolls. It's now tax exempt. We lose that revenue from tax income. Some notes: we increased sales tax by 1.5% on original increases. And something we haven't done for a number of years is interfund transfer increases. So we looked at the cost of living increases and the funds we just went through, sewer, water, all of those accounts. We increased the revenue from those accounts being transferred into the general fund, consistent with the cost of living increase for the last 5 years. This demonstrates the property tax value that dropped, and as you can see this year, 2.5 million, or 2.4 million about. So those three things that I just talked to you about that influenced that to drop those. Because the assessed value of property, generally speaking, didn't get affected. It was what was taxable that got affected. Notable changes to department head request. Police personal services, I cut $126,785. That's essentially 3 positions the chief was requesting to have filled. I've not filled any of those new positions in my budget, proposed budget. Police equipment, I cut $60,696. Police contractual, I cut $40,831. Fire personal services, $2,500. Fire equipment, $8,774. Fire contractual, $17,990. Other publicity, the Chamber of Commerce, I cut 25%, cut them $5,000. Programs for the aging, I cut 25%, $850. Our health care, because I chose in my proposed budget not to replace 3 positions, it reduced our overall health care costs by $46,512. I worked with Joint Recreation. They were very good to work with us. We tried to come up with a reduction in their budget. Overall was $44,105. Our share of that is $32,105. The additional number would get passed on to the town as a savings. And the Fire Equipment Capital Reserve Fund, in discussions and cooperation with the fire department, the volunteer fire department, which I greatly appreciate their willingness to work with us this year. We're going to reach into that account to pay the first truck payment for the fire truck, the new fire truck. This year we're overlapping payments. The final payment on the fire station renovation project is due, and the first truck payment is come due. So they've agreed to work with us and allow us to take that first payment out of that to reduce the impact. So those are some of the specifics on the budget. There's a couple more slides in a minute, but how do we go forward? Some things that I'd like to see us do. I wish there were easy answers. There simply aren't. But there really are 2 things that are my primary focus when it comes to the budget and the economy here in Massena. It's economic development / job creation and controlling cost. And when I talk about controlling cost, in the long term, I'm not looking to control costs. We have to find a way in village government to lower expenses. It's just that simple. Specifically with economic development and job creation, recognizing our quality of life and embracing it, preserving our local character, focus on what we have and retaining that. That's important. Stop the bleeding essentially in this community. Recognizing our strengths. We have a number of strengths. Some I'll talk about in a few minutes. Identifying our strategic assets, finding our sustainable growth levers and when to push them and when not to push them, and find community and regional partners. We have to start looking regionally. Stop talking about it and start doing it. What we can't do is work provincially. We are not on an island here in Massena. And I'm not going to bore you with everything we all know. We know we've lost industrial jobs. We have to change the way we think, but we have to change the way we do things also. We can't think of Massena only. We can't rely on others to help us, and everything we do now must be mutually beneficial with partnerships. Who can we work with in the region at the state level, across the border, down the street, wherever we can to grow this economy and create jobs? So some serious questions we have to ask now and get the answers to. And we're going to do that by bringing the key players to the table. Does our current approach to economic development and job creation work? I'm not sure about the answer to that, but I know we need to bring people together. Will this approach work as we go forth? I'm not so sure about that. What role does the Chamber of Commerce play in economic development, and can they change that? Can we utilize them differently? Some changes I'm proposing in this budget. I'm proposing that we invest in planning and grant writing. There are three ways that I think we can impact the future of Massena immediately. Something that we can see in the short term that brings results. It's planning, it's grant writing, and it's regionalizing our efforts. It's really simple with grant writing. You invest in grant writing, at the end of the year, you've obtained grants or you haven't. We can quantify those results at the end of the year. We know in economic development sometimes it takes years. And as hard as our BDC is working and the things they're doing, it's hard sometimes to quantitate their successes because it takes so long to foster relationships and develop. Grant writing, we can get results, we can bring money into this community. Why grant writing? It's going to allow us to work in parallel or partnership with the BDC. There might be common projects we can work with them on. There might be projects they're working on, we can be working on something different in parallel. We can lead regional opportunities for grant funding. We can focus on important projects, important needs, and our own ideas that we need to work on in this community. We'll see a return on our investment almost immediately. We'll have results. You apply for a grant, 30 days you know whether you got it or not. We'll have relationships and partnerships that we can use, some that we've been fostering for years. The BDC's been fostering, and other people, economic development's been fostering in this area. At all levels, locally, regional, and state levels, we can utilize those relationships and those partnerships to benefit Massena and to benefit this region. And we'll be noticed as we demonstrate our need, align them with what we think will work, and more importantly, we'll find solutions that make sense to Massena and the North Country. And as we demonstrate that, that can be successful. Moving on to controlling cost, the challenging. The four things that typically drive our cost up: pension, healthcare, workers' comp, and personnel. You can see they, generally speaking, fluctuate a little bit, but they're always moving up. This year we're lucky where workers' comp and pension, we're seeing a little bit of a dip there, but generally speaking, those things start to rise. Here's a breakdown of our cost. The bottom line is we must, and I'll repeat that, we must find a way to do business differently here in the village. And it's not that we haven't cut. We've been cutting for years here. Trustees have been cutting. But we're typically cutting equipment. We're typically cutting contractual expenses because of the collective bargain agreements and other things that we're locked into, the need for services. So it's a challenge to make significant cuts and make significant savings. So in the coming months, as we begin negotiations with our collective bargaining units and our management staff and our office staff, I'm hoping that management and employees can work together to reduce costs, find ways to reduce costs so we can continue to provide our services, but do it in a more effective and efficient manner. It's really that simple. Massena was primarily an industrial town. And, it's still a cornerstone of our economy. There's no question that by and large, this community was built by Alcoa. We continue to be an Alcoa community, but we have to change the way we do things. And we've had a confidence issue in this community, but there are many good things happening in this community. I've listed a few of them there. The danger of creating a list, and I don't want to offend anybody because you leave people off it. These are just some highlights that I threw down there, but there are a number of good things that are happening in this community, and we should be thankful for them, and we should build upon them or look at them for examples. But, you look at this list, Alcoa is strong locally right now. NYPA has a huge footprint here, in a good way. They're very good for us economically. The St. Lawrence Seaway, the heart of St. Lawrence Seaway is here in Massena. The heart of the St. Lawrence Seaway is here in Massena. The Hardhaven Plaza is full. We have a new restaurant that opened a couple of weeks ago. There's another one opening here shortly. We have an economic and marketing study because of the NYPA agreement that's coming out that we think is going to be very good for this region. We have 3 great rivers to build upon. We have municipal power. We have a great school district. We have a quality hospital that provides great health care. Kern Renewable Energy, what a great example of a small business that's not so small anymore, that has grown and is very successful. We have a number of other successful small businesses, and look at the Massena visionaries, some volunteer, primarily business people, who have come together to try to spruce up Massena, to create projects to help Massena. There are a number of good things happening in Massena. We need to stop focusing on the negative, stop thinking about the past and what we've lost, and figure out a way how we can move forward. The overall numbers for the 2015-16 proposed budget that I've done, that the trustees will now work on, those are the numbers. I'm not going to read them for you. You can feel free to read them. And of course, I have a number of people to thank, and I appreciate the department heads, the treasurer, my staff, and many organizations that have been working with me and meeting with me to try to find ways to reduce the budget up to this point as to where it is. And of course, we have a number of work sessions scheduled here in this room. They're open to the public. We certainly encourage people to come, partake. We want to hear from you, and this will be your opportunity where we can hear from you now. So that being said, I'd be happy to open it up to public comment. As always, I would ask you to please stand, state your name for the record.
I'll get the ball rolling. This is your first budget as mayor, so, you know, it's going to be something new for you, but I couldn't